everyone thinks they know which machine started the rotary combine revolution. They're wrong. The combine that got there first has been almost completely forgotten. So has the one that was briefly the biggest on Earth, and the one two Kansas farmers built on their own farm that actually worked and then vanished into a rival's vault. For 50 years, a handful of radical machines quietly rewrote how the entire world harvests grain. Most people have never heard of them. Here are 10. Number 1. The Sperry New Holland TR70. Let's start with the machine that actually beat everyone to the punch, and it wasn't the one you'd expect. For decades, International Harvester had been quietly chasing rotary separation in its labs, going all the way back to the 1950s. But while IH was still refining its single rotor idea behind closed doors, New Holland, then part of Sperry Rand, quietly got there first. By 1969, a totally new combine was under test, and in 1975 the first production model rolled out, the TR70. It was the world's first commercially successful rotary combine, and it used not one rotor but two. The TR70 was built in Lexington, Nebraska, the first New Holland combine actually built in the United States. It ran twin 17-inch rotors set at an angle, so material was threshed and separated by centrifugal force running over threshing plates instead of bouncing along straw walkers. Angling the rotors kept the machine short and compact, which made it surprisingly good on hilly ground. It was powered by a Ford or Caterpillar engine in the 145 to 168 horsepower range, carried up to a 190-bushel grain tank, and unloaded at 1.5 bushels per second. On the back of the machine, the decals bragged, "Look, no straw walkers." There's a great forgotten wrinkle here. As New Holland developed its rotor, one of the engineers who had worked on IH's own axial-flow patents left International Harvester to become the lead engineer on the TR70. IH sued over that engineer's role. The case was settled out of court with a modest payout, but the lawsuit delayed the TR's introduction. The TR70 was genuinely radical for its time. Some farmers, hearing the word rotary, actually asked if the thing had a Wankel rotary engine in it. It didn't, but it did have twin rotors, and it started a family of twin-rotor combines that New Holland still builds today. Over 70,000 of them produced across 5 decades. Number 2. The International Harvester Axial-Flow 1440 and 1460. This is the one that finally cracked it open, the machine that turned a quiet idea into an industry earthquake. 2 years after New Holland's TR70, International Harvester released the machines its engineers had been chasing since the 1950s. In the fall of 1977, IH launched the Axial-Flow 1440 and 1460, the first mass-produced single-rotor combines in the world. Instead of a drum and straw walkers, a single long rotor ran the entire length of the machine, doing both the threshing and the separating as the crop spiraled around it. The numbers behind the launch are staggering. IH poured more than 1 million man-hours into designing and building those first models. During the 1977 harvest, the company had around 300 prototypes running on farms across the United States and Canada, invited a small group of farmers to buy pre-production machines, and collected their feedback obsessively. As one Case IH veteran later put it, IH bet the farm on this design. It almost didn't fly. The marketing team was terrified. The early machines discharged straw out the side instead of the rear, which they thought would be a hard sell, and the engineers had a genuinely difficult time re-engineering it to throw straw out the back. The whole thing looked, in their own words, radical. The 1440 ran a 135 horsepower engine and a roughly 145 bushel tank. The 1460 stepped up to 170 turbocharged horses. In 1978 came the bigger 1480 plus specialty models, the 1470 for hillsides and the 1482 built to be pulled behind a tractor. The 1420 arrived in 1980. Farmers took the chance. And because IH held the patents on that mass-produced single-rotor design, it had a real competitive edge over John Deere, Massey Ferguson, and everyone else for years. The basic principle of that 1977 machine still lives inside Case IH, combines today. Not bad for an idea IH had been chasing and had nearly given up on for more than 20 years. Number 3. The White 9700. Here's a machine that was, for a brief moment, the biggest combine in the world, and almost nobody remembers it. While IH and New Holland were grabbing headlines, White Farm Equipment quietly launched its own rotary. The first units of the White 9700 appeared in 1979, with the model rolling into fuller production in 1980. It used a single axial rotor, and it was enormous, genuinely one of the largest, highest capacity combines available anywhere at the time, with a rotor over 31 inches in diameter and around 14 feet long, feeding a 265 bushel grain tank behind a 248 horsepower engine. The 9700 was built in Brantford, Ontario, Canada. It was reportedly the first six-figure combine. $100,000 machine, at least in Canada, which tells you both how advanced and how expensive it was. And that was part of its problem. It was so big and so pricey that only the largest farms could justify it, and the market for a machine that size was thin. Production numbers tell the sad story. Serial records show roughly 64 built in 1979, around 700 in 1980, essentially none in 1981, and another batch in 1982, somewhere around 1,100 machines total, before it was renamed the 9720 and quietly wound down. Early owners had headaches too. Some pulled the rotor out in the very first fall of harvesting. The tragedy of the 9700 wasn't the machine, it was the company. White was fighting bankruptcy the entire time. A combine this ambitious never got a fair shot, because it was only ever handled by companies teetering on the edge of collapse. But the design didn't die. Its DNA got sold, survived, and as you'll see in a moment, quietly lived on inside another brand entirely for decades. Number 4. The Gleaner N-series. Every rotary combine so far has run its rotor front to back, lengthwise. Gleaner looked at that and said, what if we turned it sideways? In February 1979, Alice Chalmers made the Gleaner N-series public, starting with the N6. What made it radically different was the orientation of the rotor. Instead of a long rotor running the length of the machine, Gleaner mounted a transverse rotor sitting crosswise right behind the header. It was the only major rotary design built this way, and it gave the machine a short, compact, front-heavy layout. The engineering behind it was clever. Grain was forced down onto the cleaning shoe by accelerator rolls at around 1,500 feet per minute, thrown into a blast of air from transverse fans that cleaned it before it even reached the sieves. And because of how that flow worked, the N-series could handle slopes without fancy self-leveling equipment. The design naturally kept grain from piling up on one side. The N6 came first, powered by a turbocharged Alice Chalmers 426 engine, making around 220 horsepower, feeding a big 245 bushel tank, and loaded with push-button features no other combine offered. The smaller N5 followed within months. Then, in late 1979, came the monster, the N7. The N7 mattered. With a header stretching as wide as 30 feet, it became the largest combine offered in North America, and it held that title for roughly 20 years before any competitor could match its capacity. Gleaner also became the first company in the industry to offer a 12-row corn head in 1979. The Gleaner name survived every corporate upheaval that followed, through Dots Alice, then AGSO, and that unique transverse rotor concept lived on in the R-series that came after. Today, most people picturing a rotary combine imagine a long lengthwise rotor. They've completely forgotten that for 2 decades, one of the best combines in America ran its rotor sideways. Number 5. The New Holland Twin Flow. While America went all in on rotors, Europe quietly built a different kind of machine, a hybrid that history has almost entirely forgotten. New Holland's American TR70 was a twin-rotor machine, but European high-capacity combine development took a completely separate path. In 1983, New Holland introduced the twin flow in Europe, and it wasn't a pure rotary. It was a clever compromise between the old world and the new. Here's how it worked. Up front, the twin flow kept a conventional threshing drum and concave, the classic setup European farmers trusted for handling long, heavy, damp straw. But instead of straw walkers behind it, the crop passed over a large beater and into a rotary separator, and then hit a lateral twin-flow rotor that split the crop into two streams to shake out the last of the grain. Why bother with a hybrid at all? Because European conditions were brutal on pure American rotaries. The crops were higher moisture, and the straw was heavier and longer than the dry small grains of the American plains. A pure rotor could chew that straw to bits and choke on the moisture. By keeping a conventional drum for the initial threshing and only using rotary action for separation, the twin flow got much of the capacity benefit without destroying the straw, which mattered enormously to European farmers who still baled it. The twin flow is a perfect example of a machine lost to geography. In North America, almost nobody knows it existed, but it represented a genuinely different answer to the same question. How do you get rotary capacity without rotary's downsides? And that hybrid thinking, drum in front, rotor behind, would resurface again and again in the decades that followed, including in two more landmark machines still to come on this list. Number 6. The Massey Ferguson 8560 and 8590. Remember that white 9700 that died with its bankrupt maker? This is where its ghost came back to life. By April 1985, White Farm equipment was in receivership, and Massey Ferguson stepped in and bought White's rotary technology. Massey had actually been developing its own rotary combines, but it scrapped its in-house designs and adopted White's proven machines instead. In 1986, those rebadged rotaries hit the market as the Massey Ferguson 8560 and 8590. The transformation was almost direct. White's smaller 9320 became the MF8560. White's big 9720, the descendant of that world-beating 9700, became the MF8590. Under the paint, they were still fundamentally White machines, built on a design so sound that pieces of it could still be found in Massey and Challenger combines decades later. The 8590 was a giant. Its rotor stretched a full 14 feet 4.2 meters, which stands as the longest rotor Massey ever fitted to a rotary combine, fed by a 248 horsepower engine. The smaller 8560 ran a 177 horsepower Perkins 6-cylinder diesel with a shorter rotor and a smaller tank. But here's the forgotten part, and it's a shame. The 8590 was, by many accounts, a highly regarded machine, and only about 100 of them were ever produced under the Massey name. 100. The corporate chaos never stopped. The machines were built by a joint venture called Massey Combines Corporation, which went bankrupt in 1988. Production limped on through a subcontractor into the 1990s before Axio eventually absorbed the whole thing. Still, the launch made history in one specific way. When those rotaries arrived, Massey Ferguson became the only company in the world at that moment offering both rotary and conventional combines in the high-capacity class. A brilliant machine, orphaned twice, that almost nobody remembers, but one that quietly seeded the combines Axio still builds. Number 7. The Claas Dominator 116 CS and Commandor 228 CS. While the Americans fought over rotors, a German company had already thrown out the straw walker entirely, and almost nobody outside Europe noticed. In 1981, Claas unveiled the Dominator 116 CS, and the CS was the whole point: cylinder system, a genuine world first. Up front, Claas kept a conventional 1.58-meter threshing drum, exactly the setup European farmers trusted for long, damp, heavy straw. But where a normal combine had straw walkers clattering out the back, Claas installed a bank of 8 separating cylinders instead, spinning drums that flung the last of the grain out of the straw by centrifugal force. No walkers at all. This was Europe's answer to a problem the twin flow was wrestling with too. Claas had watched the pure American axials, the IH1480, the New Holland TR70, and decided they simply weren't built for European fields. In tall, wet, heavy straw, a full axial rotor choked and shredded. So instead of chasing a rotor, Claas chased cylinders, keep the gentle drum, ditch the walkers, and let 8 spinning separators do the heavy lifting. And it worked. A well-set CS machine was by many accounts the highest capacity combine in the field, bar none, pushing around 35 tons of wheat an hour when you could keep it fed. In 1986, the CS range was renamed Commandor, and by 1990, the flagship Commandor 228 CS arrived with a booming Mercedes VIN-10, making around 330 horsepower. For a few years, nothing in Europe could touch it for sheer throughput, but the CS had a dark side. 8 cylinders meant 16 bearings and a threshing tunnel packed with moving parts. Expensive, fiddly, and brutally labor-intensive to maintain, especially when every cylinder had to be swapped over for corn. It cost a small fortune, more than the straw walker Dominator, for maybe 25% more capacity. And that big engine, boxed in between the cab and the grain tank, had an ugly habit of catching fire. Owners loved the capacity and feared the upkeep. Then Claas walked away from it. The company quietly abandoned the entire cylinder system to develop something cheaper to build and even more capable, the platform that would become its future flagship. The CS machines were left to soldier on and slowly vanish. Most were scrapped or burned out. A stubborn handful still cut grain today in Britain, Eastern Europe, and as far away as Tasmania. The Dominator CS is the forgotten hinge of Claas history. The radical walker-killing giant that ruled European harvest for a decade, then got erased by its own successor. Number 8. The John Deere CTS. For years, one giant refused to go rotary. When John Deere finally moved, it did something clever and half-forgotten. Through the entire rotary boom of the late 1970s and 1980s, John Deere held out, sticking with its conventional straw walker combines while rivals chased rotors. Then, in 1992, Deere made its move, but it didn't build a pure rotary. It built a hybrid, and it called the machine the CTS, for cylinder tine separator. Deere billed it as the world's first hybrid combine. The CTS kept a conventional threshing cylinder and concave up front, 14 ROS bars wrapping around a 26-inch cylinder for a long, gentle threshing action. But behind that cylinder, where straw walkers would normally clatter away, Deere installed 2 tine separators that spun in opposite directions, dividing the crop and flinging the last of the grain out with rotary force. It was the same basic drum in front, rotor behind philosophy Europe had explored with the twin flow, but engineered Deere's own way. The payoff was capacity without carnage. The conventional cylinder meant the straw came through in better shape than a pure rotary would leave it. A big deal for farmers who baled. While the twin tine separators dramatically boosted throughput over old straw walkers. The first CTS machines ran a 6-cylinder Deere engine rated around 260 horsepower. The CTS proved so influential that when Deere's patent protection eventually expired, other manufacturers followed the hybrid idea. It reached the UK in 1998 and was later upgraded into the 9780 CTS, built in Zweibrücken, Germany, with more power, a 10,000-liter grain tank, and even an optional full-body leveling system for hillsides. The CTS is quietly one of the most important combines Deere ever made, the machine that finally broke the company's straw walker loyalty and set the stage for everything that came next. And almost everyone remembers what came next, instead of the machine that made it possible. Number 9. The Claas Lexion 480. While America argued over rotors versus hybrids, a German company walked onto the stage and quietly built the machine that would set the world standard for the next 25 years. At the Agritechnica trade show in November 1995, Claas unveiled the Lexion 480, the flagship of an all-new range that replaced its long-running Dominator combines. It reached the market in 1996, built in Harswinkel, Germany. And at its heart was something the industry had never seen before, the patented APS hybrid system, a world first. Here's what made it special. Up front, Claas didn't use a plain threshing drum. It used what it called APS, accelerated pre-separation, an accelerator drum and concave mounted ahead of the main 600mm threshing drum. That pre-accelerator flung the crop through at higher speed, yanking a huge share of the grain out before it even reached the main drum. Then, where a conventional combine would have straw walkers, the Lexion 480 used Rewrote Plus, 2 smooth-running axial rotors that finished separating the grain with centrifugal force. Conventional threshing married to rotary separation, a true hybrid and a patented one. The results were staggering for the mid-1990s. The Lexion 480 pushed grain throughput past 35 tons of wheat per hour. And when Claas fitted longer rotors in 1996, that climbed past 40 tons an hour. It instantly became the global benchmark for both throughput and grain quality in the high-performance class. Then, Claas kept pushing. In 1997, it formed a joint venture with Caterpillar to build and sell Lexions in North America, which is why a generation of these machines wore Caterpillar yellow instead of Claas green. In 1998, a new generation Lexion 480 became the first large combine put into high-volume production, riding on front-mounted rubber crawler tracks, the system Claas branded TerraTrack, to spread the machine's enormous weight and stop it from compacting the soil. By 2002, the 10,000th Lexion had rolled off the line. The Lexion 480 is easy to overlook now, buried under the giant Lexions that followed it. But it was the machine that proved a hybrid could beat both pure rotaries and pure conventionals at the very top of the market. And the APS hybrid platform it launched went on to set official Guinness World Records for wheat harvested in a single day. Not bad for a forgotten combine. Number 10. The John Deere STS. And here's what came next. The machine that closed the loop on a 50-year story. In 1999, John Deere finally committed fully to a single rotor. The result was the STS single-tine separation. Where the CTS had been a hybrid, keeping that conventional cylinder up front, the STS was Deere's real answer to the pure rotaries that IH and New Holland had launched more than 20 years earlier. It used a single-tine fitted rotor, and its whole design goal was to move more crop through the machine while burning less power and handling the grain more gently. That last part is the key. Earlier rotaries could be power-hungry and hard on the straw. The STS was engineered to deliver higher throughput with less horsepower and better material handling than the machines before it. A refinement of everything the previous 40 years had taught the industry. Models like the 9650, 9750, and later the 9760, 9770, and 9870 carried the design forward, growing in power right up past 440 horsepower. And here's the beautiful forgotten connection that ties this whole list together. Remember those two Kansas cousins and their Bi-Rotor, the 17 patents John Deere bought in 1995? When the STS finally arrived just a few years later, farmers and industry watchers openly speculated about how much of that purchased rotary knowledge had flowed into Deere's new single-rotor design. Deere never spelled it out, but the timing was hard to ignore. Buy the farmer's rotor patents in 1995, launch a game-changing rotary in 1999, the STS became one of the most successful combine lines Deere ever built. It ran from 2000 through 2012, and the technology inside it evolved straight into the S-series machines, harvesting fields around the world today. If you learned something today, do me a favor and let me know in the comments which forgotten combine surprised you the most. And if there's a machine I left off this list, tell me, because trust me, this graveyard is a lot bigger than 10,